another episode of Trinidad Bhojpuri Words and Phrase. So in this episode, we take a look at the words BAKULAA, some say BAKULAA, BAIKUNTH, Trinidad Bhojpuri phrase Hum JAAILAA, DULAHIN KHPYAJ or DULAHIN. Another Trinidad Bhojpuri word, KULAMBAR, and our food-related word, DARBOOJ or DARBOOJ. So let's go catch up with Vinay of the Cutlass magazine. So this is the star.
Right, they do not like this, right? I'm asking so.
So good to see you again, Vinay. I really enjoyed this. Well, I enjoy all the weeks, really, the Trinidad Bhojpuri. But the interaction this week was just super fun. So we usually start the week with a simple word, BAIKUNTH. We went with this week, BAIKUNTH. And many of you are familiar with BAIKUNTH, but some we're not able to say, well, BAIKUNTH and BAIKUNTH, could it possibly be the same? Others immediately know the answer.
Yes, exactly. So Baikun is the Hindustani word for heaven, paradise, heavenly abode, a celestial region. And a lot of people were correct to reference Vaikunth or Vaikunth, which is the Hindi alternative. And between Vaikunth and Baikунth, you see certain Hindi to Bhojpuri transitions. First of all, the fact that in standard Hindi, when they say Vaikunth, there's the TH sound there at the end, whereas in the Bhojpuri it becomes kunt, and you just hear the T, a very kind of stressed T, so it loses that aspiration at the end. And then obviously the V goes to B. So the way that you'd know a Parvati in Bhojpuri, that becomes a Parvati. So Vaikunt becomes Vaikunt.
वैकुंठ भगवंता जय कमला कांता लक्ष्मी कांता शरणागत रक्षंता वैकुंठ.
And again, it's just the word for, and there's so many words for heaven and hell in Hindustani, but this one is just another one for heaven, abode, final resting place, all
Paradise. So BAIKUNTH, well done everybody. Thank you so much for your response. We moved on to another B word, BAKULAA, some know it as BAKULAA, and we had a response from Earl in Jamaica, a garling, a cattle egret, white bird. Someone said crane, and while a crane technically is a different type of bird, they look almost the same. I remember hearing the word crane used, and whenever we saw those little white birds, when you just cut the grass and you see them coming down, and you'd be like, oh, it's a crane. So that's what triggered memories for me until I realized, oh, it's an egret.
And I myself had a really good time seeing all the different words that people saying, the cattle bird, crane bird, egret, garling. But yeah, it's essentially that. It's the egret, it's the crane bird, it's some people say heron, and it just
Heron, yes.
It just depends on whatever variety of English used there. But yes, it is particularly that very symbolic or visually apparent white bird that you would see, on the banks of a river, eating fish on the banks of a river. And yeah, that's the context that you'd know the BAKULAA in. And some dialects of Hindustani do say BAKULAA. However, in Trinidad Bhojpuri and other Bhojpuri dialects, it seems that rather than BAKULAA with a G, we say BAKULAA with a K.
Right. Now, Nana Singh left a note, BAKULAA baithe nadi kinare machri chuni chuni khai. And I asked, what's the next line? So he had trouble remembering the next line. Munit Koya stepped in with his response.
Yeah, he said, Machri ke kata gatai mein atake, tarap tarap mar jai. And that actually is a phrase that has even come up in songs that I've heard before. So we're going to actually include a sample of the Mukrad Sahadeo song Fishbone, where he repeats that same phrase, slightly different, but it's the same, almost the exact same meaning.
नदी किनारे बकुला बैठे चुनी चुनी मछली खाए मछली के कांटा गल में अटके तरफ तरफ धिया जाए.
So Bakula Baite Nadi Kinare means that the egret bird, the heron, is sitting on the banks of the river. And machari, as people might know, is fish, machili, machari. And then chini chini kai means that he's eating it piece by piece. Chini chini is piece by piece. And then machari ke kata gatai me atake. That means that you're gulping the pieces of the fish, but it gets stuck in your throat. And then tarap marjai means that you're suffering slowly, you're dying slowly. And it's kind of like it's obviously a very sad phrase, but it's more of like a fun, you get what you asked for kind of thing. Like if somebody is greedy and they're gulping down food, something like that happens, and you'll hear in the Mukrat song that he's complaining about eating fishbone, and then that's his fate in the end of the song.
And on that note of a song, Nalini Mohan of Suriname also submitted a song and a phrase in Suriname, Bakula jo baitha jhar par sidri ke aasa lagai ke.
Yeah, when she says that line, Bakula jo baitha jar par, that means the white egret. That some people use jar to mean a tree, some people use it to mean a fish. So it means the white bird that is sitting on the tree or bush. So when it says Bakula jo baithe jar par, the white egret is sitting on the bush or sitting on the tree. And then Sidri ke asa lagai ke means that it set its hope on all of the small fishes it's looking like down at in the river below. But the implication obviously being that, the desire it felt to those fish to eat those fish goes unfulfilled.
So now I don't think we'll ever forget Bakula or Bakula because you have so much content to go with that one harmless and sweet little bird called a Bakula or Bakula. All right, so we move on to Trinidad Bhojpuri phrase, Hum JAAILAA DULAHIN KHPYAJ. Vinay, you gave me this phrase. Who gave you this phrase?
I feel like almost every auntie I speak to gave me this phrase, and I also use it on them because, as you know, people are always asking when you're getting married.
I thought it meant something. Your family is just trying to tell you, time is ticking, my friend.
Yes, and I did notice that some people commented trying to get married. Now, the literal translation, Hum JAAILAA DULAHIN KHPYAJ, means I'm going to search for a dulahin. I'm going to search for a bride. Now, in Trinidadian parlance, you might say, I'm going to look for a girl. But yeah, that's basically a way to reply to someone. So usually when I'm talking to, an auntie, I'll make a joke and say, I have to play my own agua, my own matchmaker. So Hum JAAILAA DULAHIN KHPYAJ. I'm going to search for a bride.
All righty. So I think everybody went along with that one, and it probably brought back some nice memories for people as well. All right, and another Trinidad Bhojpuri word, and this is one related to the Girmitya experience, Kulambar, and there's rich history related to this word.
So some people, Kulambar is a word that typically translates to overseer. And some people might know the word Sardar or Sirdar. And as we know, that word is often used for overseer. And the word Sardar or Sirdar comes from the word Sir or Sar, which is your head. So a Sardar or a Sirdar is the head person, the overseer, the manager. And so in this context, however, Kulambar, even though it might literally translate to overseer, there is a certain context associated with the Kulambar, and a lot of people reference it. And it's somebody who oversees while people are doing work, but also the individual whose job it is to come and shout out the number of the indentured laborers to have them either come line up to be taken for work or come line up after work to return back to, the barracks that they were staying. So the Kulambar comes with that attached meaning of the individual who back in the day would have been a European person whose job it was to call the numbers of the workers, to have them respond to those numbers because those numbers were essentially, their names back then.
Mm-hmm. Now, Sudhir in Fiji said that it's a word that's still in use in the cane farming sector. As a senior sector officer, you'd still use the word as Columbar. But he also shared sort of a bittersweet piece of family history on how his great grandfather became an assistant Columbar upon returning to Fiji for a second term. It really is a lovely read, and thank you very much, Sutir, for sharing that precious bit of history with us on Trinidad Bhojpuri words and phrase.
Yeah.
So, Columbar.
And one thing I wanted to also reference, as I mentioned, the Kulamba, the Sirdar would have started off as a European person, but then when indentureship ended, Indian people didn't suddenly leave cane field work. So then those positions were then taken off by an Indian person appointed to them. So I had people reaching out to me saying, oh, well, my great grandfather was a Sirdar or a Sardar on the estates. And so you just have to remember that after indentureship ended, those roles would have then been filled by Indian people, which is why Sudhir had his great grandfather become a Kulambar or assistant Kulambar, as he said. And the individual who reached out to me mentioned her great grandfather also being a Sirdar, Sardar in the estates.
Mm. And if you have a similar story that you're familiar with in your family, you can share with us as well. We usually wrap up with a food-related word, and we went with a fruit-related word, and this was darbooj, or Vinay, I think you are more familiar with the darbooja. You've heard that one as well, darbooja.
Yes, so darbooj, or the one I'm more familiar with, darbuja, is the Hindustani word for watermelon. And this is the case where you're really grateful for emojis, because I love seeing everybody just comment a watermelon emoji. But yes, some people might hear in Hindi films, they might say darboos or darbuza with a Z, but then in our Bhojpuri dialect, that Z changes to a J. So darboos becomes darbooj, and darbuza becomes darbuja.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Sudhir again from Fiji said tarbooj. They use tarbooj. And well, we know that there are hundreds of varieties of watermelon, and one would be a rock melon, and they call this a kharbooj.
Yes, exactly. And even as we just saw with bakula versus bagula, there's so many different words and different dialects for the same thing.
All right, so the next time you go, you know to pick up a darbooj or darbuja. And on that note, we wrap up Trinidad Bhojpuri words and the phrase. Well done, everybody. Thank you so much for keeping up with our weekly offering. I mean, some people, were able to immediately identify these words. But of course, if you are not from a family or home where these words are spoken or always in use, then chances are you wouldn't know some of these words. They wouldn't be familiar to you. And you know what? That's fine, because that's the whole purpose of this feature. And it's why we have these weekly recaps, so that we sound out the words for you. We get into conversation. We reveal some of the comments, and we leave it open for you as well to get in touch with us. So on that note, Vinay, how about your contact information?
Yes, you can follow me at Cutlass Magazine on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or send me a Sundays message, cutlasspodcast@gmail.com.
There you go. And special thanks as well to Dr. Visham Bimal of Caribbean Hindustani. So until next week, keep up with our words and get in touch. Share the videos. You can also catch this on YouTube. If you have family or friends not so savvy with Facebook, there's also the YouTube link. And yeah, so until next time.
And there you have it, another episode of Trinidad Bhojpuri Words and Phrase. This has been a KDC production in collaboration with the Cutlass magazine and Caribbean Hindustani. Catch you next time. Time for talk.